Our colleagues, good afternoon. This is our time to start our webinar, which is dedicated to trees and artificial intelligence. Before we start, I'd like to take this opportunity to tell you that our current event, our webinar, is dedicated to the International Year dedicated to the 100th anniversary of Henry Altschuler. And this year, in 2026, Henry Altschuler would turn 100 years. He was our leader, our teacher, Genrich Saulovich Altschuler. Usually we organize our TRIZ Developers Summit, which takes place regularly, and it's dedicated to Altschuler's birth date. But now we have a very important date, a very important anniversary, and this is why the organizers, decided to host Mr. Altschuler's year dedicated to Heinrich Altschuler. Every month throughout the year, we will have various events organized and hosted. There will be this webinar. So this is one of such events that are included in the schedule of events for the current year. Now, just to remind all of you, here we have this schedule of events. We have drafted this schedule and we put it to the website dedicated to the 100th anniversary of Heinrich Altschuler. The website address is very simple. I have texted it to the Zoom chat. If you push this button here, we will see those dates with the events scheduled for the current year. So we have this date, October 15th, the birthday of Heinrich Altschuler. And then there is this calendar counting telling us that there are 60 days left. And then also we have this January, current month, and we are hosting our webinar today. You can select different button here, and this tells more about the events and milestones from Heinrich Altschuler's life. The website is available in Russian and also in English and in Chinese. Now we also have organizers, hosts of these events, and you can learn more about it in the About This Project tab. You can also participate and become a host or an organizer of these events. For this, you will be able to tell us about it. After that, you will be able to highlight what kind of seminar or workshop you want to host. You will need to inform us about it, and then after that we will include your event in this event schedule on your initiative. This will be your initiative. We also have a Telegram channel, which is live and which is dedicated to the 100th anniversary of Heinrich Altschuler. There you have some relevant information. We publish some relevant information, and we recommend that you subscribe to this channel to be updated on all possible changes. Now to our webinar, and with that I'd like to give the floor to Anton Kulakov. Anton, over to you, please. Please take control of the screen, and we are ready to start our webinar, so we'll try to tell you about Compinno-TRIZ software suite. This software works and based on AI and uses AI in its operation. Can you hear me well, and can you see my screen? Yes, we can hear you. Yes, and we see your screen too. Now, yes, it's in full screen mode, so you are all set to go. Now, colleagues, if there are any issues, please just let me know that they have a problem. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Thank you for this opportunity to kick off this set of webinars that we will have this year. I hope that there are 2 months behind in this winter. We don't see your presentation anymore, and we only see your desktop, and that's it. I'm going to put it to the full screen mode once again for better presentation. Yes, now we see your slides in the full screen mode. Now, colleagues, of course, technical issues are possible sometimes. I hope that everyone is in good mood. In the Northern Hemisphere here, we have 2 months of the winter behind us, and of course, we are a bit tired, but I hope that all of you who expect spring, and to all of you, I'd like to wish you encouragement and being active during these very tough winter months. At this webinar, I'd like to focus on 3 main areas. The first one is related on how to use Compinno-TRIZ software based on AI, and using AI, how we can make sense of a complex problem without big fatigue, without spending a lot of resources, and without losing confidence. The second area will be focused on how we can use efficiently quiz tools and AI to find good solutions, not unstable solutions, but to find reliable solutions as efficient as possible, leveraging AI possibilities. And we don't want that to be brainstorming these sessions. So we want to reach final result based on that. So AI enables us to do that, and I hope that there are some prompts or issues, maybe just unveiling these secrets a little bit for you. I will also show you some other opportunities, possibilities offered by Compinno-TRIZ, for example, comparing ideas and concepts with the help of AI. We have already implemented that, and we have a dedicated module which has been implemented recently, and I believe we haven't yet presented this module to anyone. I will also tell you something about our current developments in our pipeline, just to give you some heads up for the future. Before we start, I can tell you that the majority of all of us today, 72 participants are online, so the majority of you have already heard about neural networks, about AI, and of course, whatever this means. And of course, every one of you has heard about LLMs, large language models. It's very hard to avoid these things today. And of course, most probably, some of you have already been using AI recently and very actively. For example, just receiving prompts to do your exercises, down to getting more concise recommendations to watch a film on Friday, or using AI to upgrade your language skills, English language skills, or other foreign language skills using an AI electronic assistant. We already have it in our lives, and I see that some of you, maybe most of you, maybe you have already used these tools, such tools. The professional community, and of course, among all of you, we do have these people who use those IT specialists, products, developing, creating LLMs. Of course, many of you use them in your work, marketing specialists, engineers, bloggers, content generation, as well as collecting information. So this is the reality we already have here in our lives. So all these people, all of us today, can confirm and can agree that our efficiency, more or less, whether it is physical activity or research, any activity, maybe like very broad research that we're doing, the efficiency has increased manyfold, maybe dozenfold in the IT industry, such area as developers, engineers already dilapidated because we have the majority of tasks are performed by AI, and we will be faced with that in other industries, but we already have it in some areas. We also will try to look at what's happening in Russia, in other countries. Maybe the situation is the same, or maybe the shift will be more focused on AI. The Russian Research Social Center have conducted a poll across Russian internet users, and the question there was, how often do you use AI in your life? 51% of respondents answered that they tried using AI for content generation or for addressing other tasks or using other products. So this means that people do use AI at the moment, and out of this sampling, 61% underscored the value of neural networks to work with information, 38% content generation, 36% data action, data processing. This is what they responded. So again, generating images with cats or kittens is not like the biggest majority here. People do find something else for which they prefer to use AI, and their purpose of using AI is pragmatic, and we are happy to do that. Of course, we don't that technology. We don't want that to be used to generate content with kittens. Again, this is the stats we have in Russia. Maybe in other countries we will have something similar or maybe even more. Now, me and my colleagues have been confronted with different complex tasks if we want to use LLMs to address and solve complex tasks. What are our challenges? So we have this issue for that we said here, prolonged approval of documents in the electronic document management system. This is a non-technical example because we do have different people connected here online, so that it will be understandable in such a way. So it uses the same algorithms for technical issues. Well, large language models are really uh, very instructive. So what you tell it, it will do what you tell it and generate what you tell it, what you ask it to generate. An LLM is very instructive, and it treats your prompts as is and generates a response based on the context that you provide. Now, if you describe a problem like that in the slide, this leads to the following. This leads to us getting abstract solutions which are impractical in life because there is nothing to implement because they are very vague and very high level, so it's not possible to use them in real life operations. Or maybe some obvious and unworkable solutions can be generated, which of course happens from time to time. An LLM works with your context, it works with what it knows, and it provides those obvious unworkable solutions that you already have used, but it doesn't know whether you used it, and that's why it provides such responses. Last but not least, such content is really massive. It provides various responses which are very different. So this is a brainstorm in its worst version without any critic. So it provides all it has on its table. So it provides everything, and then after that you are the one to handle it. You will be able to pick something good out of that, and there is really nothing a lot of good there. So this is a very weak start to
И
address
это довольно
complex
слабый старт
tasks.
в решении сложной
So this
проблемы.
is
Он
what
практически не
happens with all of
повышает
us when there is
вероятность
this
падения, как
runner,
вот бегун,
you
который
know,
вот спотыкается и падает, да,
tripping
как
and
это делается.
falling all the time. There is another issue which is
Тревожность
related to the
того,
fact that
если
even
вы
if we
знаете
have a
такую,
very
она
good
связана с тем, что даже
description,
если у
it
вас есть
very
такое
often
емкое описание, довольно
includes
часто
like a
оно похоже
set, like a
на,
salad,
ну, такую
a mix of
солянку,
the
такой
different factors,
салат из
assumptions, or mix.
слабо связанных фактов, домыслов и мифов.
It can include some unproven data when
Неподтвержденные
people
там какие-то
start telling
данные
about very
генерируют,
complex or
начинают
issues, which
рассказывать свою
means that they are
ситуацию.
not related, and you need a
Одно не связано с
specialist to be able
другим,
to address all of
и
that, to be
для
able
этого нужен
to
специалист, который вот в этом во всем
find
может разбираться и
those
вытягивать за
items
ниточки
that you need,
конечные,
you
вытягивать
know,
какую-то
as true
объективную
specialists
реальность из того, что
working with a
рассказывает человек.
task.
Например, вот специалист по ТРИЗ начинает работать с
It's,
задачей, он
this
начинает это
specialist
тянуть
works to
шаг за шагом, за ниточку, тянуть
identify
какие-то
facts, understand what is
факты,
true or not or
что-то является
false.
домыслом, а нужно
So
еще
this is
и
work done by a
разобраться,
true
что
specialist, and
является
then
домыслом,
there
что
can be
является фактом.
cognitive
Там может
distortions in
сделать
people's
определенные
heads, and
искажения в
this
голове,
takes a lot
и
of
это
time,
вот
which is
найдет вот
inefficient.
эту
If you start
проблему
addressing
очень
a task
неэффективно,
in such
начинает
a way
решать
those
задачи вот с таких вот
zero or negative
нулевых, а то и
positions,
отрицательных позиций.
we have implemented
Но
two approaches
мы выработали
on how
два
to
подхода,
reduce
как этих
the
проблем
impact
можно,
of
как
these
влиять
challenges.
этих
The
проблем на
first
решение задачи
approach
можно
is to
минимизировать.
refine the task using LLMs
Первый подход– это
when we have an
уточнение
issue,
задачи.
if we have an
Повторяю, да,
issue,
где у нас проблема образовалась,
when we
где у нас проблема
work with an
образовалась
LLM. If there
во
is an issue there,
взаимодействии
we are
с
going to address
большой
it
языковой
with
моделью,
an
соответственно, мы
LLM,
ее
but you
также
need
и будем
to
решать с помощью
make it do
большой
it.
языковой модели. Но только нужно ее заставить
Prompts with TRIZ
это
tools
делать.
is our second
Ну
approach,
и
which
промпты с
we've been using,
инструментами ТРИЗ–
and
это
those
тоже второй
prompts
подход, который мы тоже
enable
применяем,
us
и он, опять же, у нас
now to maximize
позволяет
the leveraging
максимально
of trees
задействовать
when we work
мощь
with LLMs.
ТРИЗ, да, при работе с большой языковой моделью.
Again, large
Следует
language
отметить, что,
models
в принципе,
know
большие языковые
something
модели
about
знают
trees.
свой
If you
вкус,
have it as an
даже
input, if
если
you have
пользователь
an
находится в
issue or a
части,
problem,
вот у меня такая
and you
проблемная
will describe it
ситуация,
to an LLM, and then if
и
you
там
hint
будет
at
какая-то,
contradictions,
ну,
this
какой-то
model
намек на
can
противоречие,
give you a
она
response
даже может
with
вам
trees.
сказать, а
If,
вот ТРИЗ
again, you
с
have
помощью
used
ТРИЗ вот
trees, you
можно
would have
было
used
так
trees, you could have
сформулировать и
formulated those
передать ему
contradictions, but those
тревожность.
contradictions
Но
very often are
эти
generated as
противоречия,
weak ones.
они
They are
получаются
unstructured,
слабыми,
and
они
every time they are very
получаются
different, it
неконтролируемыми, то
formulates
есть оно
it in
каждый раз
different
звучит
ways,
по-разному, она
and very often,
там
sometimes
гипертрофируется,
those
и бывает,
contradictions
достаточно часто
can be
бывает такое, что
contradictions in
эти
their form, but
противоречия
they
по
are not
форме
real
могут быть
contradictions because
противоречиями,
there
по
can be
существу таковыми не
hallucinations
являются.
in
Просто она
the
там
LLM model,
галлюцинации
and that is
какие-то
why it
может
generated
испытывать.
all that. So there are these
Поэтому
two
вот
approaches
два подхода,
which
которые помогают вот
helps
эти
avoid
все
those negative
негативные
impacts when we
явления,
address a task
связанные
using
с
LLMs. We want to reduce
решением
these
задач с
impacts
помощью больших
to
языковых моделей,
acceptable
снизить
levels
это,
or to
снизить это
good levels
влияние
even.
до приемлемого и даже
Now
положительного.
let's see how this works,
Давайте
because it's better to
посмотрим,
see
как
it
это
once
работает на
than to
самом
hear
деле, и
about
зайдем в суть
that
чем
a
сторож
hundred
собственно.
times. I will show you some slides,
Обращаю ваше
and
внимание,
those
что я буду показывать
slides
слайды, на которых будут
will
скриншоты,
include
сделанные из
snapshots from
Compinno-TRIZ.
Compinno-TRIZ. I'm not
Я
going
не делаю
to
демонстрацию здесь
have a
напрямую на
live demo of
Compinno-TRIZ, потому что, ну, у
Compinno-TRIZ
нас, во-первых, не
because we don't have a
мастер-класс,
master class, a
во-вторых,
workshop here. This
это
will
забрать,
take
будет
some
забрать
time
очень
because an
много
LLM
времени,
needs
потому
time to
что
generate
вначале нужно
approaches,
сгенерировать
and
ответы,
we
и мы
just
просто
will
будем с вами
have
сидеть,
to
общаться за
um,
жизнь, пока она будет
waste
генерировать. Но
time
чтобы
to
это
look
избежать,
and
я
to
сразу все
wait
сделаю
for its
заранее.
responses.
Но
So I
каждый из вас
prepared that myself beforehand.
может
So before
визуально
that and after
определиться.
that, you
Каждый из
can
вас
take our
может
slides and
потом
you
взять
can
эту презентацию и пройти мой
repeat
путь,
my
да, вот
actions
с
in
описанием
such a
проблемной
way
ситуации.
to
Вот в таком вот
clarify
виде
the
пройти
problem
весь
as well
путь
as
по
to
уточнению проблемной
respond to
ситуации,
LLM's questions, and after that you will be
ответить на
able to
вопросы
get
LLM
some kind
и
of
дальше уже
solutions.
пытаться там получить какие-то решения. Ну давайте начнем
Now,
работу.
Anton,
Да.
this Campino suite is available both in English and Russian languages. Yes, it's available both in English and Russian. In the interface, the
Да, вы
Campino
когда
suite
заходите уже в
includes
интерфейс
this
раздела
possibility to switch
Complex
to the English
Webinar на
language.
английский язык, да, можно им пользоваться на английском языке. Не как через
Again,
переводчик,
there is
да,
a
браузерный,
full-blown
а там
English
развернутая
version
английская, англоязычная
available.
версия. Да, на сегодняшний
We
день.
don't use online translators for that. So now we start with a
Итак,
problematic situation.
начинаем мы с
Again, as
уточнения
an input,
проблемной
we have
ситуации.
this
У нас опять же на
bad
входе есть
description,
такое
this
неказистое
lengthy approval of
описание
documents
до
in the
пресогласования
electronic
документов в
document
системе
exchange
электронного
system. This is
документа
not
ввода.
a secret for all of us that this is not just a phrase here which does not exist in reality. So, or issues such issues are formulated. Again, we do have something like that in real life. So this is how we formulate problems. So this is how it looks like in real life. And then after that, you try to work with it and find something good about it. So now, as an input, we have a description of the problem, but after that, we push the clarify button. So we push the analysis button, and then after that, we get the initial analysis that there is no contradiction in this situation. The model is 95% confident in that, so there is this level which is very high. So in this phrase, there is no contradiction. Again, it is very far away to reach a contradiction in such a phrase, in such a formulation, in such a formula. Now again, we start clarifying the problem situation. In the module of clarification, we uh, select dedicated buttons, and we get responses from LLM. So at first it welcomes you, and then it says that it has studied your problem. And again, there is this very good tone of voice, which is very welcoming for a relevant specialist. It's possible to engage with an LLM as if with a live person. International practices, global practices tell us that people like working with these LLM models because they are very, very welcoming. Our next aspect here in this interface here, we have here in the screen, in the snapshot. So the model asks questions to us and it clarifies its actions. Now to formulate a specific situation, it wants to clarify a number of aspects, and it tells you why it needs your clarifications. So this is an English version of the slide, just for your reference for our English-speaking colleagues. Now it tells you why it asks questions from you. So, and again, this is something which welcomes you and which creates a good tone of voice for answers and questions. Again, it marks a professional tree specialist. A tree specialist tells people why he or she needs responses to their questions. So the next aspect I'd like to focus is the open questions we have here. So we have open questions. Again, all of these questions are open, so for a specialist, for a person, it's possible to think what kind of information can be provided. This is number one. On the other hand, open questions have both drawbacks and advantages. Their advantages include the possibility to get information of that one. Again, if you are asked an open question, you don't even understand why you can and how you can respond to this question. Again, the model gives you this possibility to work with examples in such a context. For example, question number one, which documents take the most time to approve? For example, are these contracts, internal orders, financial reports, or all types of documents without distinction, meaning that all documents, the deadlines for all documents, the approval of these documents are missed. So, and again, this is the analysis element, which helps us analyze all that, whether all documents are supported with those deadlines missed in approval, or these are specific documents, or there is this incentive to analyze what you have if it's available. If you don't have it, you will be able to analyze what you have, and this is a good start to address a problem because here you now narrow down the area of your task, meaning that we are not going to work with all the documents, but with some specific documents. Who is involved in this process? So it gives an example of who might be involved, maybe some persons in this process that could be bottlenecking the issue, bottlenecking the process. Now, this initial Q&A session, sets a good path for analysis. It incentivizes us to analyze, and this is not done by a complex through a complex trees toolkit. So a person does not need to perform a structural analysis, and there are not many terms, or terminology is not complex with the structural elements. So here you just communicate with another person, if I may put it like that, who asks questions to you. What do you have here? What do you have there? Etc. Yes, Anton. Just
Антон,
if you can flip back,
Да.
slide back. So all
могу
this
заглянуть?
happens
Да. Это все происходит вот под этим вот
under this initial section because there is no
началом, вот здесь
contradiction
написано, что
in
противоречия
the
нет
area
в том виде,
in
которое
its
вы
initial
заявили.
form. Yes, initially it says that there
Да,
is no
вначале, да,
contradiction.
она пишет, что противоречия нет.
Да, и соответственно те вопросы, которые там
Now, all these responses
задаются
that
и
we
ответы,
get
которые
are focused
получаются,
to identify such a
они
contradiction
направлены на
if
то,
there is a
чтобы
contradiction there.
противоречие
Yes,
было
indeed.
обнаружено, если оно там есть.
Совершенно
Верно?
верно, да. Да. После этого
Now,
мы
this is the
переходим
first
к
set of
ответам
answers
пользователя.
provided
Я
by
чуть-чуть
users.
перейду.
Here you have
Вы, опять же,
those
обратите
answers.
внимание,
So you provide
что
answers
ответы вы
to this
пишете
system using,
просто
regular
с интонацией,
language,
как бы вы
as if
отвечали
you
на
speak with another
заявку, как бы
person.
вы мне отвечали. Вот
So
так
this is the way you
начинайте.
provide responses. You use those words
Да,
that you
и
usually use in your professional
используйте те
communication.
слова, которые вы обычно используете в
You
своей
can
профессиональной речи. Можете
You
какие-то
might not
ключевые
have
какие-то
answers to all the
вопросы
questions. You can
не
skip
знать
those
ответов, да, там
questions,
или
and the
просто
model
знаете,
will
либо не
consider
отвечайте
that
на
so
них
when it provides you
при
a
дальше
final version
более
of your
функциональной
problem,
версии
of your task. Then after
выполнения
that,
задачи.
after
Дальше,
responding to all the
после
questions,
того, как
you think that you have
вы на все
responded,
вопросы ответили, вы считаете, что вы на все вопросы
then
ответили,
you
вы
push the
дальше
respond button,
нажимаете на кнопку «Ответить»
and
и,
then the model does the following. So it provides
во-первых, да, дальше
a
что делает
feedback,
модель? Она вам
meaning
выдает
that now it understands the problem better,
ответ,
which is, of
каким словом
course,
нам
a
объяснить.
very good
Это уже облегчает.
support. And again, there is this
Но при этом
insistive
если
communication.
хотите
There is
послушать
something it wants to
коммуникация,
know more about,
если
and it
что-то осталось
gives you
непонятным,
and
оно вам
answers, poses more
задает
questions.
еще несколько
With that, I'd
уточняющих
like to draw your
вопросов.
attention that
И
these
обращу
questions,
ваше внимание,
again, there is this set of questions. So all these
что
questions
эти вопросы, опять же,
consider
еще
the
раз повторю,
context of your previous
эти вопросы,
responses. It
они
provides
учитывают контекст предыдущих ваших ответов. Вот она
this
пишет.
automatic
Вы упомянули автоматические
automatic
напоминания. На английский
notification,
пока
automatic
переведу.
reminders. So you mentioned
Вы
automatic
упомянули
reminders. Do they
автоматические
work?
напоминания.
So in my response,
Это
I put
действительно
that we
работает. Это
have
работает, если я
automatic
там, например, что-то
reminders that there
написал
are documents to
забавно,
be
если вы
approved that you
автоматическое
delay
напоминание о том, что документы, вы задерживаете согласование
those documents,
документов,
but I
все.
haven't put
Я не
whether it
написал,
works
работает
well
это,
or
не
not,
работает,
whether it
плохо это
works
работает. Либо это
inferior
работает
from
не так,
what
как и
has been
ожидалось, или
expected. So and
хорошо, не так,
again,
как ожидалось.
this
Я
is
об этом
what can
уже как бы
happen. So when a
проговорюсь.
person tells
Рассказал
you
и
about
половину
something and
не
then
повел себя как типичный пользователь. И
it comes
она
back to it. So you
настойчиво
mentioned that
мне,
one,
так,
and
вы
then
упомянули
it
это.
asks me whether
Хорошо,
this
как это
work. Do they
работает?
work? And then
И
after that,
дальше
I
я
provide more
уточняю
information about
вопрос,
it,
я
whether this
говорю,
works
вы
in
мне можете
reality or not.
рассказать о
And then
том,
after that,
работает ли это на
I'd
самом
like to
деле или
draw your
нет.
attention
И
that
опять же, обращаю
my
ваше
model
внимание,
hints
что
at possible ways
модель
to
подсказывает
address the
возможные
problem
варианты
or
подготовления
to
ответов
again respond
ваших
questions to
ответов.
questions.
Да, конечно, можно сказать, что
It
она
performs my answers
делает
presuppositions, and again,
символизацию
it
моих ответов,
hints at
заранее,
some particular areas, but these are this insistive
скажу так,
way
что
of
это на вас
communication. This is
говорящий
something
язык,
which helps us
можно
respond
с
to
этим не
questions.
соглашаться и отвечать
Sometimes
как
people
можно,
just ignore
и
those questions.
что зачастую люди и
This
делают,
happens very often, so this is just an example
для
which
рабочих
it gives
целей,
me
да,
here,
такие
and I
символы,
will
они
respond my own
приветствуются, я
response. But
зачастую.
when for people who
Поэтому, но
are,
человеку, у которого
embarrassed with
аккуратно
open
подходит к
questions, this can be a
вопросу
good
и
way for them
подходит
to
к теме,
communicate with
которую
the
вы
system, with an
задаете,
LLM. So
и
this would be a good way to start with anything, just to think about the
позволит
problem,
с
maybe
чего-то стартануть,
just
как с
to
каким-то
look at the
мотивационным
question. And again, those
вопросом. Если
examples
понятен,
is
то
something which
примеры,
helps
они
people
позволяют этот вопрос
understand questions
раскрыть
better.
в лучшем
Also more on that. So each time when a model asks questions, most often it clarifies why it needs this information. In question 2, for example, so this helps understand whether the issue is about people or the process itself. So again, this is very important because in this area, at this stage, so we have this loop of synthesis and assessment. So this is already implemented here. So there is this TRIZ, inventive thinking here. So there is this loop which is up and running all the time, which hints us at some thoughts and sets a vector of what you need to think about to respond to this question. And after that, at this stage, you might have some ideas even before starting to address anything. So we just clarify the problem and that's it. Again, this second response session of users, this is something which is very concise. Some questions that are used to clarify and those responses provided. By the way, in question 3 here, it starts, giving you those possibilities to act. Maybe what are the ways to fulfill the requirement so the system can function to set strict deadlines. With that, it fills what has already been done to improve the situation. For me as a user, I tell it that it's possible to configure strict deadlines. I just respond to it in this short manner and we'll see how it will help us later. This insistive communication is important. So for a company, companies spend a lot of time to train its employees, to train people how to have this insistive communication for people to get answers to their questions, which for many people is inconvenient. This can cause some unpleasant feelings with many people, but here we have this computer talking to us without any feelings, so it can ask those questions, and then there's this insistent communication when, again, I put here that it's possible to set strict deadlines, to configure set deadlines, and then the model tells me that you have mentioned that it's possible to configure those strict deadlines, and then you need to provide more information to the software, how this has been done, maybe if there were any attempts to improve it. And then at the same time, the model is still emphatic, and it makes those sharp corners smoother. So it smoothens the situation. So, and this will help me to understand the situation in depth. After all these clarifications here, so there is this third session of questions. There are very often 3 sessions, sometimes more sessions are available. If it's a complex problem, there can be 4 sessions. I know colleagues who had 5 sessions, but this does not take a lot of time to respond to these questions. Again, this information is available, and this is what you have in your heads. It is unstructured, and with that you structure it and put things in order. For a model to start asking questions like that, so for that we had to make it do it. In Compinno we integrated a number of prompts which we developed and tested on different tasks, and we tested its behavior, what kind of questions it was going to ask, and we wanted this to be insistive questions. We tested all that, and then after that we created a prompt which we integrated in the software. So these prompts will help you work with the system, and you don't need to create your own prompts and integrate it in Compinno. It's already inside. You just need to set those problematic situations described and respond to questions posed by the model. Now, again, there is this final stage of clarifications. the model has understood everything, and now after that, so we had this contradiction which was not there, but now we have this contradiction which is identified, and the confidence level is 95%. Also in the text, we see that we see the problem in its full volume with all its contradictions. So this is what we see. And again, we see this contradiction word in the response. Then after that, we continue working with it, and the model is trying to formulate these contradictions in its own format. Here we have this red underlining, so there is this closed loop here, which is identified without deadlines. And we have those documents approved for a very long time. Again, it takes a lot of time to approve it, and at the same time, we don't lose the expertise and efficiency with those approvals, because again, any approval, on the one hand, it requires some time, but then also in the process of approval, we get the expertise from different specialists who provide their own perspectives on the project, and with that, they refine this, they improve this project by impacting project documentation. If we implement strict deadlines, then people will just push approve buttons, and if we put it in KPIs, then everyone will just put questions up and put and push buttons, and that's it. But no one will have a look at documents indeed if we make it a strict deadline and a part of the KPI, and we'll lose this expertise. Now this is the final problem, final task, which is more detailed, even more words here. It has included all your responses there and also underlined those key moments there. It goes at a closed loop, and it says that the problem now is the impossibility to get a good expert-based approval within projects implemented. But then after that, you can agree to that or not, if this is a description of a situation which you've been thinking about. Again, you added all that and you put it, there is this lengthy approval, you agree to that, and then you keep working with that in other modules. You will be working with contradictions in other modules of the software. If you accept it, if you approve it, you take it and you put it in a different field, and you work with that later. Then if you want to clarify anything, you can make any additions, telling that it does not work with this way, and this is a very plain, simple communication which happens. Again, the communication here is based on a very plain language, which resembles how we speak with other people. Now, this first area, so the process of clarifying a problem is now really simplified. So before we needed to squeeze information out of people, of different people. This was the case earlier, and three specialists. Now again, one of their advantages is that they can squeeze reliable, needed information about the problem, about the tasks very well. We talk with different people. Maybe people not always remember about TRIZ tools, but they always can tell that, again, TRIZ specialists are really very instructive, and they ask very concise questions, very simple and very important questions, being able to get what they want, what they really want. And this is the key asset of a TRIZ specialist. So this is what we try to integrate and model in the Compinno-TRIZ software, and we have succeeded in that, we believe. And so for specialists, at the very beginning, it's possible to describe their problem quite efficiently, and you start addressing a problem not from scratch, not from some bits of thoughts or bits of speech. Again, in people's heads they mean a lot, but again, people speak in their own language, and sometimes the speech it's not easy to understand the ideas out of speech. And then as an input here, you have those very clear wording of a problem. There can be some limitations kicking in at in your communication with other specialists, with other people. And the TRIZ specialist starts working here with a situation, with a problem which is described in a good way, and then after that, next steps become more powerful based on that when you use those tools in the software. And again, the description of the situation impacts those possibilities and efficiencies of further TRIZ tools. And again, as a result, all out of that, you will get those relevant solutions for your problems if you are successful at this first stage. And after that, we have a different question. Again, we have described this problem in a very good way. We squeeze the information out of the person, we receive the information, and then after that, you need to understand how to solve the problem. Now we have this contradiction, we need to address it. To formulate a contradiction, again, those using Altshuler tables, analyzing those conflicting elements or items, we need to look at their properties as well as formulate those properties, contradictions, and for that you need to have those TRIZ structures. And again, teaching TRIZ approaches is very labor intensive, so the technology there is really very complex and it's not possible to teach a person to work with TRIZ is not easy. And again, it's not easy to train people to address contradictions, again, to make those mechanisms of work in your head. It might take years, maybe not even months, and this will require continuous practice. Now, what do we do in such a case? It turned out that language models can work with that in a very good way. They can handle that at a very good level as a satisfactory TRIZ specialist, so it's possible for them to derive those contradictions, formulate contradictions out of problems. And after you formulate a contradiction, then after that you can formulate a result out of that, an output, and then based on that output you will be able to generate ideas. Here in the slide we have those requirements formulated. So these are the requirements that were automatically generated from a new problem situation. When we performed the analysis, it told us that we have a contradiction, and it told us that, again, its confidence level was quite elevated, quite high, and then after that, it also derived those contradictory requirements, and it formulated those requirements, contradictions, which is really relevant. If the reality is that if you set those strict deadlines or strict approvals, your approvals will not be lengthy. You can strict those deadlines very strict. You can make them really strict, and you can even approve your documents in just 3 days, and that's it. But at the same time, it will be inevitably using expertise from this document or from this project documentation. If we just remove those deadlines, the expertise will not be lost, but those timings can be very lengthy, up to 6 months, and they can be very long. Again, they can be even so long that those project outputs won't be needed anymore because of those approval deadlines. So this is the contradiction we have in our EDI, Electronic Data Document Interchange System. So this is the contradiction we have. It has been derived by our LLM based on prompts. If you just put this problem situation here, each time it will formulate those contradictions differently with those results that are really not sustainable. It will tell you that, again, large language models know something about trees. They were trained based on some TRIZ materials, but again, they formulate contradictions, very far-fetchedly. But again, a contradiction in a nutshell is based on a structure. But here we have the structure, which is again very refined and complex. So you work with those consequences and causes and relations. If you formulate a contradiction in a very far-fetched manner, you are omitting the structure. If you are omitting the structure, then it's highly probable you will lose those connections between causes and consequences. If you lose this link, you start trying to solve something else without those requirements that are not met, and you get a result which are not related to any real situation and won't impact the solving of a real problem. Again, working with the structure, that was very important. And when we created those prompts for Compinno, we wanted to integrate all of that there because we wanted the model to be consistent, to avoid any third-party data added, and we wanted the model to follow this structure, which is approved to work with contradicting requirements. There was another challenge to check those requirements. Sometimes even people do it like that when we have requirement 1 and 2, which are interrelated or which are parts of a broader requirement. In such a way, a contradiction becomes unviable or incorrect or vague. You might be able to try to address it, get a solution, but then if you try to, implement this solution, it won't be working in reality because this will be this mistake committed at a prior stage. We wanted a large model to test it, and we are still working on it. We are developing always to be able to make this prompt, to make it more clear and concise, not to avoid those, fluctuations in the model. We have already reached some results to refine it. But again, the structure, when we have an LLM, again, we are using DeepSeek at the moment, and we are satisfied with DeepSeek. And we have a prompt for DeepSeek. Now we create these prompts for DeepSeek, and because we want DeepSeek to work in how we want it to work. If anything changes, we will be possibly trying to change the prompt if we are not satisfied on how it works with contradictions. Our next implementation in the prompt model is analyzing resources. So we make the model to analyze resources that we have in the task. And here I'd like to draw your attention that this analysis here is generated by a problem situation. A lot what we have here, and it's underlined in red, is taken based on the context of a problem situation. So based on its data, based on its knowledge about the subject, it generated some additional resources. We didn't have these resources in the situation description. This is not just a way to change words, locations. It's not the way when it changes words in a sentence. It is an impact that we have high level with those value-added properties of a model. For example, it underlined a time to send a document as a resource. Again, the time spent to work with a document, the time of the day. It wasn't in the problem description, but it understood that out of the context in brackets. So it understood that to avoid more questions. It understood it from my words, thought about it, and again, you always need to put those quotation marks when I tell that it thought or something else, because this is not real human intervention. Again, the time needed to open the document, scrolling, so all this is derived from the context by the model. So it derived all of this out of its own resources. We have a resource categorization or classification, so it sets those areas with time information, those user actions, and those objects that might be implemented and involved in the document approval process. There is more on that. So this classification can set those tones to work with such approaches. We did all that not just to, have a look at this nice structure. We wanted to reach ideas, and we wanted to work with ideas. Again, let's have a look. The first idea with those principles is the following. So it has a prompt here with those approaches. Now those principles 10, 24, and 28, which is our older prompt version, where it tries to use its own approaches. Now we are trying to make it use bipoles, bifields, everything like that is in development. Even like that, it provides quite reliable ideas as outputs. Now, what does it really suggest? It suggests having the following before we go to an expert. On the EDI system, a document can be analyzed or handled with an algorithm, but then after that, we understand that this algorithm can be something which is based on an LLM. So this LLM can analyze this, looking for collisions, clashes, or it can be really thematic, providing those thematic hints from different perspectives of a financial specialist, of a lawyer, of a legal counsel, or other provers who delay the deadlines. And then after that, it provides a recap of the document telling that there are those collisions, clashes that are possible here, and it wants us to focus on them. I have tested this idea, and I've tested that on presentations. I took presentations from my colleagues. Before that, I looked at the presentation and I took down some of the comments or questions that I had about the project, about the presentation. But then after that, I took this presentation and I uploaded it to an NI LLM, and I wrote a prompt for the model for it to check the presentation. I wanted this model to check a number of aspects. And then after that, it provided a response, a resume, based on my prompt. And I see that, we do have many overlaps. So it's possible to, assign these functions there to help an expert not to lose time to watch the whole document. So it's possible just to have a look at the resume on the document, summary to find some key clashes or collisions in a project, in a document, to provide your expert opinion for this project. Or you can focus on other areas to those documents, that might be handled by a language model, but an LLM. So this is the idea that was generated, which was quite sustainable and technically viable, practical and actionable. The next idea derived by an LLM based on the contradiction that has been formulated and the resources that have been provided. So this looks like that. So this idea is really very concise and really deep if you just describe a situation there. And of course, it won't be able to provide such a concise idea based on that. If you, again, link those deadlines to a loss of economic benefits. And again, if you delay a document, this might lead to an economic loss. And again, a project for a commercial entity is aimed at deriving benefits or values. So again, with the exception of some image-based projects. And again, projects are focused on getting profits. If you don't do any actions within the time limit, you lose money. So all these delays in approvals might lead to an economic loss. This is possible. If a person has like 5 projects, and out of the 5 projects, 4 of a project face delays in approvals, then this might have really bad impact with those red KPIs for the EDI, generating losses for the company based on and thanks to their delays. So there is this psychological, pressure out of that exerted on this person. So this is what has been generated by the model based on all that. I will just try to give you a few moments for our English-speaking colleagues to study the English version of the slide. So this is the idea we derived from the Compinno software suite. So here we have what we have in Compinno, and then at the bottom I provide my comments. So I'm just explaining that in my own words. The next idea here. Last before the last one. So this is not a new idea. So this is just preliminary way to familiarize for experts. It is not just given to the experts out of nowhere. And there is this preliminary approval which takes place where you have the possibility for an expert to look at some parts of the document, or maybe with some extracts from the document, which are important for this expert to avoid any questions going forward. This is the configured solution what we have here. There is another area which is an organizational solution for a project initiator. For example, this is acceptable to be in touch with key approvers. Again, you don't need to approve the document out of nowhere, but to be able to contact the approver beforehand, maybe to give a call to the approver, giving them some heads up about the project, underlining that we are going to have a project and we have some key aspects there. We want you to focus on these key elements. I just give you these heads up. So these are soft skills that are demonstrated in this communication here. So this is a very good way to avoid any issues, because very often people forget to contact approvers directly, trying and speaking that we have an EDI which is provided to minimize communication across people. We remember that we carried papers for signature, but now we only have this communication via email. But this, property and this skill is really important, and which is lacking in the EDI system. Out of that, we might have very long communications, people spending half of their days sending emails, trying to explain to each other and, or blaming each other. But when you come to a person and talk to a person in a live mode, this it really makes the process works quicker. Again, this property, when you don't have to spend time to go to a person to visit the person, and we have these distributed teams across the globe, this is again an advantage. But we lose this communication skill and value. But this value, this is something which we miss now, and it's good to have it in the checklist. You might leave it. So before you send something for approval, it is possible maybe to talk with some key financial specialists or approvers, just to give them a call and give them the heads up that you are going to provide to send a document for approval. This is really maybe very simple or primitive, but this works. This does work. This is the third example, third idea generated by AI. And the fourth idea generated by AI is the following. This principle, Z principle, or Z approach with middlemans, replacing those areas with those transparency field. This idea here now is landed in different dimensions. So you can create a ranking system framework, which will be a rating of those approvers that delay most of the tasks. So when a person logs into the EDI system, each of the persons there highlighted, showing their stats in the welcoming window. So in this welcoming window of an EDI system, you can publish information about those violators who delay the documents. This is one way to do it. We can do it differently. So this is what we can have here through punishment. This is through punishment, but now it is possible to use this praise approach, which works might better. This is the green pen rule. So we need to highlight those best performers in the proving process with those leaders, to be highlighted, impacting quality in the approving process in the EDI system. So we can highlight them there too. So this is the idea which is generated by AI. So it works with this social dimension. It highlights the social dimension, and it gave it a very good name. So this really can be this very good social interaction, this social punishment or social acceptance. I like social acceptance more. It works quite well and it's possible to implement it technically. Now, when it comes to the second part, before I get to the third part, so how we work with AI and TRIZ in Compinno-TRIZ. So you clarify the situation, and then in the second part of my presentation, we had those ways to work with contradictions, so it's possible to start this work, you can correct those contradictions, and then maybe very soon we will make those buttons implemented with those entries and exits from a problem situation. So again, a person working with Compinno-TRIZ might not even know about trees, just know that the trees toolkit is a good way to get results to problems. But again, this won't require people to teach trees, to learn more about trees. For those people who are interested in that one, it's possible to tap into trees deeper. So maybe, well, again, it's possible for a language model to formulate incorrect contradictions. It is possible, like what it can happen with people too. And again, according to my statistics, for formulating incorrect contradictions for LLMs and for people, it is very, very similar. And again, all this boils down to speed of response and speed of learning. It took us like a month of developing and testing of a prompt to teach a model, but you need to spend a year to teach a person to reach the same level of addressing contradiction. So this is the difference. An LLM can be used by all users. So all users logging into Compinno-TRIZ can use NLM, but we can only teach one person for 1 year. So this is what we have here in terms of time difference and time advantage. Again, LLMs enable us to replicate those expert specialists working with contradictions. Then there is part 3, which is implemented, which is LLMs. Here we have many tree specialists in our webinar, and in principle there is this benchmarking, those of you who know more about it, and many specialists use it. In trees we have our own benchmarking. One of the parameters is the way to address parameters, so we do need the benchmarking to use the concept we have. We can compare different concepts and we can derive one or two concepts that we will be implementing firsthand. And again, making this choice out of nowhere is not good. You can just work with details and that's it. The most challenging thing about benchmarking is to select those comparison parameters. So we need just to compare different parameters, taking parameters from this side or from a different side. So the idea was to implement it through AI. So we wanted AI to be based on the context of our task. We wanted it to consider the context from using information search or trees contexts. Based on these contexts, we wanted it to provide some parameters to compare those contexts. It has already been implemented in Compinno-TRIZ if you add those concepts, benchmarking concepts, if you added problem situation descriptions, or based on these two data flows, you will be able to push the analysis button and it will provide a set of parameters. Then you as a person, you will be able to decide whether a specific parameter is good for comparison. Again, reducing time to involve experts. So I provided it for the 4 ideas. Again, reducing time to involve an expert. Is it good for me or not? Yes, it is good for me. I take it and I put a plus there. Expert assessment quality. And again, those scores from 1 to 5 are suggested. Maybe it's not a good parameter, maybe I don't like it fully. I can take a parameter of those units I have here, or the description can be different, or the approach can be different. I can select my own approach, but again, it set the direction for me to work in. And again, we have 6 of them provided. Again, our problem is not technical, so we have a lot of scores. Score-based assessment in the for technical problems, it generates kilos, watts, so specific units, hours. Again, it can formulate it and define it quite specifically. So we added parameters, and then after that we do a benchmarking, which again gives us more time, frees up a lot of time, so you can collect those parameters, and instead of spending a few hours on that, you spend much less. Like you can do that in several minutes. You just select it and do it further. There was a TRIZ master selecting parameters, and then after that I did it myself based on this tool, and I even managed to make one more. And again, the TRIZ master was like, I forgot about it, so it's good that you added it. So these are the cases we have, and again, we verify them. So this structure of an LLM plus a TRIZ prompt enables having this flexible system, this buy system. So it helps us develop, improve prompts based on the feedback of colleagues using these tools. So again, this is quite a good way to develop. I'm forgetting to flip the English slides. Sorry for that. Now we are going to speak about the current pipeline we have in development. Just briefly, one of the ways we test correctness of contradictions. Here we use those LLM approaches to be able LLMs to test the logics of contradictions. So this is what I have in my prototype. We don't have it in the Compinno. I only have it in DeepSeek with prompts. I'm trying to create those prompts to get sustainable results. So here we have those areas, those consequences and rules that are mixed up. This is a very frequent mistake. There is another frequent mistake when you formulate contradictions, which is when you duplicate what we have in a way, and very often, it's possible to equalize a way to address a contradiction itself. But in a nutshell, it is different. It is the same. And there is no link between those two, and then a person is trying to address it in some way, which leads to false solutions which do not solve the problem. So this is what we are doing at the moment. It is still under work in progress, and this is what is ahead of us. So we are trying to have this TRIZ toolkit implemented, and we want AI plus TRIZ toolkit to get a pocket TRIZ specialist based on that. In-pocket TRIZ specialist. Also, like to recap, Compinno-TRIZ suite looks like this at the moment. So analyzing and refinement of the problem situation using AI is what we now have in Compinno-TRIZ. This was our part one today. Further, we offer inventive problem-solving tools. We have looked into them, and they are AI-driven right now, and you have seen that in the presentation when we formulated contradictions, analyzed resources, iterative problem-solving. So it can do that itself at a very good level, not inferior to a standard TRIZ specialist, and sometimes even better. In Compinno-TRIZ, we also have a possibility to create TRIZ project roadmaps for those of you for whom it's relevant and wanted also to have an AI-driven approach there. We have started those developments. I would like to remind you that we also have a dedicated module for the analysis of those action principles, so it's possible to analyze those action principle, or you can analyze those parts, including functional analysis. You can have a look and implement root and cause analysis. And we wanted to add an RCA based on AI, but we are not working on it currently because we do have a number of issues about it when it comes to LLMs working to create RSAs on a tree-based model. It's not good. They cannot work quite well with such algorithms. Comparing concepts based on AI, it is already possible. I have already shown it to you. And also just remember that Compinno-TRIZ is a project environment which can involve creative, technical specialists, experts from other domains involving domain guys, domain people. Maybe it might involve other specialists. I have references when people use Compinno-TRIZ in real estate to buy and purchase real estate objects, real estate assets. So again, Compinno-TRIZ can be used even for such tasks. In conclusion, I'd like to underline that having this link of TRIZ plus AI, LLMs plus TRIZ approaches helps us integrate and implement TRIZ when you have just familiarized yourself with methodologies. So when you learned about TRIZ possibilities, TRIZ links, when you know about it, even around it, you can create such an infrastructure, some infrastructure in your enterprise, in your company, or you can have an expert, an individual expert working on a particular task to derive some non-standard, out-of-the-box solutions to address contradictions. So this link will be very helpful for such specialists to formulate a problem and also, again, to have those contradictions addressed contradictions
противоречий. Это раньше
addressing is not like the most basic TRIZ tool.
Да,
Out of
следующая
the
вещь,
pocket TRIZ
что
master,
для
TRIZ
разработчиков
specialist in your
такого
pocket.
желанного
This is
специального
what we are trying to
продукта,
achieve. So we
и
have
получается у нас так. У нас получается, что есть
very few TRIZ
специалисты, которые
specialists.
действительно
They're very
занимаются
highly
техническим
professional, and of course, we don't have many of them
во
for
всех
all
видах
companies. So maybe it's a good way to,
поэтому
develop this one in your company to
историю
get such an electronic and
разработки
digital specialist in
точек
your
этого
team.
специалиста электронного
At the same time,
Compinno-TRIZ,
LLM
вместе с этим
possibilities and the
возможность
possibilities of
больших
LLMs
языковых
to work with
моделей
TRIZ
и
tools
возможности больших языковых моделей работать с
requires
Compinno-TRIZ,
that researchers work
требуют
in this area. We need to work
исследовательской этой
how
области
to and understand how to
работы. И
create
где-то
prompts in this
проходит
area. We are working on it.
работа в этом
But
направлении,
this is the
она
niche
идет,
that
но
is available
люди,
to
которые
others.
могут
Maybe some of our listeners today will be ready
в
to
этих случаях тоже
participate.
поучаствовать
This is like a research domain in itself.
направления, да,
You can
исследователи ТРИЗа
take a path
TRIZ-систем.
there and make
И
your
смотрится
research
перспективно.
in these areas. Last but not least, I can
И
tell you that
стоит
LLMs
отметить, что
enable us
большие языковые модели
to
позволяют
develop new approaches in education. I know that Mikhail and Natalia Rubina
обучении.
are
Мы
working
знаем,
on
что
this at the
Наталья
moment,
Рубин,
so they
Михаил Рубин
are
занимаются
trying to accelerate
для того, чтобы ускорить,
the
да,
process of
обучение
TRIZ
больших
education for
людей
people,
ТРИЗу,
because again,
ТРИЗу. Потому что, ну,
we have
кто-то,
this
кому-то вот хорошо, что
Compinno-TRIZ
есть
tool
такой инструмент, как
and
Compinno-TRIZ,
other software suites, but many people want to have
но
such
чувствительно
mechanisms in their heads. Having a software tool is important, but I want to have it in my head. I want to understand that
чтобы мне это было в голове.
through my
Но
thinking. I don't
кажется, что у
want to
меня
have
было в
it
голове
like in a
не
year or
через
two. I want to have it
2-3, да, хочу,
in
чтобы у меня было это
a
в голове
month or in
через
2 months.
месяц, 2-3
I might have a
максимум.
budget for
Но
education. I don't have a
у
lot of
меня
time to
бюджет на
study.
обучение, у меня
So
время
these
для того, чтобы
challenges need to be
обучаться.
addressed, and
И,
we want
конечно,
new tools
такие
to address these
вызовы,
challenges.
это вот
LLMs
наличие новых
are
инструментов, которые
instrumental
вот большие языковые
to
модели,
implement
они
this.
могут это
We can
реализовать с
create
помощью
those
LLM,
training
реализовать и
facilities
тренажеры,
based on
которые можно
LLMs, and we
разрабатывать
want
по
these
тренажеры
training
по
facilities
обучению
to be
этих
used
языковых
by
моделей
companies. So it is
сейчас
available, it is possible, and we are planning to
реализовывать.
create
И
such
в планах
training
в
facilities in
будущем году
Compinno-TRIZ.
может
Compinno-TRIZ
появиться
currently can be used as a training module, as a
Ну,
training
сейчас
model,
Compinno-TRIZ в принципе можно
but the
использовать как
interface
тренажер,
there
можно
maybe
использовать как тренажер.
is not good
Есть
for
большие
that at the
интерфейсы,
moment,
которые
but
очень
in
языку
principle,
удобны.
if you
Но, в принципе,
want to do that, you
если
even can use Compinno-TRIZ as a
понадобится,
training facility
можно
already
и
today.
Compinno-TRIZ использовать как тренажер уже сегодня.
If any of you does know where you
Что
can
еще
access
вдруг не
the
знает, где
software, here is the link.
вот
The
вам
QR code
ссылка,
will
QR-код
lead
тоже
you
есть
to the
на
website. If you
сайт.
open
Обращаю
the
внимание, что
website
если вы
in
видите
on your smartphone,
в
then
телефоне, в смартфоне,
you need to remember that
то
this is a
есть
web
нюанс
version.
один.
We don't have
Это
an app
веб-версия.
for a smartphone.
Приложения
If
для
you
смартфона нет.
launch
Поэтому,
the
когда
software in your
попробуете
telephone, in your
получить
smartphone,
эту
it won't be
программу,
shown in
то
full. You need
придется
to
полностью. Для этого нажмите
be
вот
able
здесь вот
to
в углу
switch to
экрана
the
и
desktop
выбрать
version,
версию.
not a mobile
Либо
version.
полная версия,
When you do
либо
that, it will be
версия.
provided in a
Тогда у
full-scale
вас
mode. You see
точно
the
вы
QR code,
можете работать с ним.
and those of you who wanted
На
to do
экране
that, you have already
находится
scanned the QR code. And we'll also provide
поэтому
this
в
slide
любом случае эта презентация будет в свободном доступе.
for all of you.
Поэтому вы...
Антон, звук пропал.
А сейчас? Просто мне кто-то звук отключил.
Сейчас есть.
Now that's it about the webinar. So here we have this
Теперь по вебинару все.
recap
У меня тут
slide
небольшое
here.
резюмирующее такой слайд, хотел сказать. Смотрите,
20th century
интеграция
TRIZ
20 века, он
was about having
характерен
technical
тем, что
systems. Mr. Altschuler discovered those technical systems, and he was the one to say that technical systems develop in accordance with dedicated laws, and we can use these laws to develop technical solutions based on a structured model, based on a structured approach, and they wanted that one to these laws to be able to guide our work to develop technical solutions. and we needed much time to work on such solutions. In the 21st century, TRIZ is different. Those TRIZ laws were replicated and extrapolated to functional and purpose systems, not just technical systems. They were spent away, and the time needed to learn TRIZ efficiently. Again, this time reduction trend has been quite relevant. Recently, we have it everywhere in all domains and all disciplines. So this means that TRIZ is following suit, and we are keeping up with this trend. And now we have Compinno-TRIZ. This is how it appears. So this is another feature of the 21st century as we have it. So this is it about my part. Again, I'd like to give the floor to Mikhail Rubin. He will announce our next webinar, our current topic we have today. We're highlighting it today. It's like very down to earth. Mikhail Rubin has a more high-level topic to speak about, and Mikhail will present. Coming back to the previous slide, I just want to make a few comments. So these are the 5 differences of TRIZ in the 20th and the 21st century. So Anton has mentioned that again, we spend now a lot of attention not just to address problems, but also to set problems. We also identify problem situations and set tasks. We are focusing on that. This is number 1. We also work with business, not with just technical systems. The third difference is that we form strong thinking, like what we had in Altschuler's works. We also are focusing and emphasizing working with businesses and industrial enterprises. Number 4, so we minimize the time needed for implementing TRIZ tools. If we learn how TRIZ works now, it's not possible to learn everything about TRIZ. This area is really very big, very large. Again, we now work with problem situations. We have them, and we select dedicated tools to be able to address those problem situations to get an actionable result. Number 5 is that now we use computers and AI, which is another feature of the 21st century TRIZ. Thank you. Now let us move on to our next slide. So we have included this slide here as as a recapping slide of what has been presented by Anton Kulakov, and also like to make a bridge to next webinars. We have been hearing a lot of discussions about the real value of AI, whether AI if it won't, ruin people's thinking or mindsets. Again, we are hearing whether AI is good or bad. We are outlining our position here, which is about the fact that we're living and we are surrounded by a civilization created by human beings, which has its own drawbacks. Our civilization is a complex of live matter and dead matter, dark matter. So again, this technical slide is the matter we have, which is not a human matter. So we don't want to have it as is. So people have those thinking based on physiology, and very often for people it's not possible to manage big volumes of energy, big quantities of people. modern civilization has a lot of drawbacks or
Современная цивилизация
disadvantages.
имеет много недостатков.
And we have a model, we have an
Есть
assumption
предположение, есть модель,
telling us
которая
that AI and other technical development areas
направление развития
lead to
человечества
something
приводит к
which
тому, что
can be
мы
called a
построена
civilization
цивилизация
based on
не на основе живых
unlived
живых
matter,
материалов,
not a
а на
living matter. So
компьютерных
again, or it can be just having
цивилизация
a civilization of living and
организмов,
not
цивилизация
non-living,
интеллектов.
artificial
И
sources. With that, we need
она
to
может
provide
самостоятельно
those mechanisms
действовать по
for
цивилизациям,
artificial
если
civilizations
иметь
to exist in
привязку.
such a way we get an
В этом
idea
случае мы получаем
for
идею
developing
того,
AI.
что
Again, artificial
развитие искусственного
civilizations
интеллекта,
is
искусственной
something which is a
цивилизации —
prospective,
это
prospecting area in the
перспективное
development of
развитие
the
материи.
mankind. So this is
Вот
the idea of
сегодня
the
идея
next
не
webinars,
говорить о
so when we will
следующих
announce
вебинарах,
it
мы
additionally.
объявим об этом отдельно. Антон,
We do have a number of
чате
questions in the
есть
chat. If
вопросы,
you can
я
see the
могу
questions,
взглянуть.
yes, I will stop screen sharing and try to have a look at the questions.
Я ставлю показ. Так, так, так. Вот.
Насколько удачно LLM делает
Is LLM good for
functional
addressing
processing?
functional processes? LLMs can take
LLM-ки
objects or functions,
выделяют функции,
so they can
которые эти объекты выполняют,
identify
взаимодействие
relationships
между ними.
across instances or objects
Я увидел
for
много
LLMs at systematic
на
levels.
системных уровнях они
They can
ну, то есть
work
они
in such
могут,
a way, for
грубо говоря,
example, having
завод
a factory and a machine.
или станок,
For them, the system level will be
для
the
них
same
это будет
for these instances,
огромной
and
системой
this is
объектов.
one of the tasks
И это
which we
является
need to
одной
address on
из
how to
задач,
make them
которые
understand that these
предстоит решить, когда
are
предстоит,
different
когда предстоит
instances. If I
строить
can add to that,
искусственный
please.
интеллект.
Yes. Now,
Можно дополнить, да?
Да?
we have it
Да, у нас
in this full
сейчас
volume,
в полном объеме
building those full-fledged
построение
models.
функциональных моделей,
We don't have
полноценных
it
моделей
in this automatic
делается с помощью,
AI-driven
автоматически с помощью
approach
искусственного интеллекта.
because of reasons
В
mentioned
силу
by Anton. One
тех
of the
причин,
ways
которые Антон сказал. Одно из
we are thinking about
направлений, которое
is to
мы
derive results
рассматриваем,
of the functional analysis without showing the functional analysis itself.
без показа
So we can
самого
have this
функционала.
functionality which is
То
within
есть функциональное
an
обслуживание
LLM,
именно внутри
or
LLM,
based on that, we will provide outputs to
пользователю
identify
выдает
those problems
результаты, то есть рекомендации по выявлению тех проблем,
which we
которые
managed to identify with those local or
удалось найти.
functional models
Локальные
in this
функциональные
problem
модели,
situation, not throughout the system, but those
не все
problems that
системы
are identified with those recommendations provided, as well as changes in the
рекомендации по
functional model,
решению
etc.
именно
So this is
функциональной модели.
what we have as a possible
То
one.
есть,
Maybe it will be
возможно,
easier
это будет легче, проще реализовать,
to implement it, and for users
пользователю
it will be
будет удобнее пользоваться
easier to use these recommendations rather than to look
чем
at the
рассматривать
functional
функциональную
model
модель
in itself.
в целом. Антон, вот
And
я
was my
правильно
comment relevant about the
сказал,
possible
это
development ways? Yes,
направление
quite
развития?
relevant.
Да, да.
There is another question whether AI can
Есть
identify
вопрос, насколько
contradictions. How
хорошо
well
и
can it identify
эффективно
them? Those
взаимодействуют
parameters of the system that need to be changed, or those that
фундаментальные
are
системы, которые
becoming
имеют
inferior. They
хорошие
do
системы,
that
которые при этом ухудшаются.
like this. So
Применение
DeepSeek handles it
DeepSeek,
at the
давай я
level
так скажу. DeepSeek это делает
of prompts.
на
It uses
уровне
prompts
опять же,
to
с помощью промптов он это делает
provide
на уровне
outputs
такого
similar
первого
to a
специалиста по
level
TRIZ,
2 or 1
первого, даже второго уровня по системам
level 3
карты Даллас.
specialists in the Cardidalo system. So to train such a
Специалист такой
specialist, you need like to
развит
spend a
такой
year or
специалист,
even
да, можно
longer.
сказать, там, год.
but it does that quite reliably. But again, there can be issues with those ways for it to identify the way to address a contradiction in the system or the requirement itself, so it can now repeat itself. Sometimes this issue is there. Using prompts,
Да, такое есть,
we
но
can
с помощью промптов, опять же, мы
we can do that.
можно сказать,
We can avoid this.
отчасти научились делать.
In Compinno-TRIZ, you use the
Ну,
actual
и
table
таблица используется
or
в
matrix. Yes,
Compinno-TRIZ.
we do that. We have it there.
Да.
Она
Yes, it is
используется,
adapted for technical and for
она
business, for digital
адаптируется
design. So there
для
are
бизнеса
different
и для цифрового дизайна
designs,
с
different
разными
possibilities for using the
преимуществами
Altshuler matrix.
применения таблицы Альшулера.
We had questions about the presentation.
Тут
The
вопрос не в
presentation will be
помощи процесса
available. We will
оптимизации, мы
provide
потом
it.
ее разместим на...
Now, yes, I have
Михаил Семенович, а где мы ее разместим?
informed our
Ну,
participants that we
достаточно
will
написать
send the
просто
presentation to our
почту
Telegram
ссылку
channel,
в
and
телеграм-канале.
we also will put it to our
И
website.
на наших сайтах Александр, мне кажется,
Alexander has
обещал сайты
put the website addresses
рекомендовал.
as to
Получается,
100 GCA and the TRIZ Developer Summit
строго
websites, so we
сырая
will make it
советы.
available there. There was a question about the expert
Так, еще
motivation.
был вопрос,
Natalia
почему про мотивацию экспертов. Ну, тут Александр вроде бы...
Alexander provided a response about the motivation, about the
Да,
social
Александр
pressure,
ответил, да, что про мотивацию
what we
экспертов
had it
сказано
there.
про социальное давление, да, и так далее. Так. Насколько удачно это мы
Yes, we have
ответили.
covered that one.
Ну так, я тут что-то вопрос не вижу, поэтому я это, извините, коллеги, без вопроса, но то есть комментировать комментарий не
I
вижу.
won't be dwelling into comments. Evolution notion,
Там есть вопрос
technical and
о если
biological
эволюции
systems.
технических
It is
изменений в системе
contestable.
склонны так меняться
Requirements can
по
be
иным условиям. Вот
shifting, but
требования
they are not
изменения
related to
Я
our
видел
webinar
вопрос,
topic.
но он
Well, we
не
have
является вебинаром, поэтому я...
Ну,
been
давайте
speaking
просто,
about
ну, мы
the
говорили
trees
про
of
идеал
21st
цифрового
century.
века,
Oh, in a nutshell, so
и
this
то,
ideal
что можно
perfect
сказать,
result
что
output is the area
идеальный конечный результат как раз и
which leads to
является
the evolution
параметрами
of technical systems. And
изменения
those parameters of technical
эволюционистских
systems
систем.
are
И
evolving
параметры
in
технических систем,
a
которые
particular direction.
эволюционируют, не
Requirements are
только
also evolving. So
технические
these are two
требования тоже
interrelated
эволюционируют.
parallel
Две
phenomena
связанные
or
параллельные
phenomenons. And again,
параллельные явления, да, значит,
one of the
безусловно,
tree's
основа,
fundamentals
одна из
is
основ
having this
эволюции
technical
является
system
эволюция,
evolution
эволюция
principle.
технических систем.
Ilya had a question about real estate specialists. Yes,
Да, вот я
Compinno-TRIZ, they used
посмотрел,
it. They used it for for
сделали
RCAs,
причинно-следственный
root cause
анализ,
analysis.
сделали риэлторы, и
So we remember
был
this question
смысл
about the
тот вопрос
Dolina
про
impact. There
долю,
was
да,
this
то есть
contradiction, and real
почему
estate
есть противоречие,
specialists
и риэлторы
used
говорят,
Compinno-TRIZ
ну, у них там
to address this contradiction. I
то есть
cannot again
невозможно
present the whole
установить
project,
там
but that was the reference there. They addressed the issue with those
поэтому,
Dolina
короче,
impact when
решали
people started
проблему с вот этими факторами,
being
которые
afraid of
ограничивают
buying
манипуляция
used
самостоятельно находящимся
assets, real
жильем.
estate
И там
assets. There
есть
is this
противоречие,
fundamental
значит,
contradiction in the middle
и
where, again, real estate specialists cannot
предлагается
change legislation. So this is the first contradiction they had. The second
Компино.
contradiction they had
Это первое, что
was
лучше не
about
использовать Компино. Второе,
this low
это
involvement of real
близкие
estate agents
инвестиционные
with
системы,
those
агентства,
mature
которые
agents
уже
having
специализированы в агентстве недвижимости
the experience.
и
They don't
знают
want
жилье
to
и не хотят
make cold calls,
делать
and they
холодный
work
рынок
just based on
недвижимости
references, and that's it.
по
That
рекомендациям
the turnover
и
of
тем самым
real
делать
estate firms is going
портфолио
down.
агентства недвижимости. Вот то, что разбирали в Компино. Так, вопрос. Как устранить или обойти саморазрушение тенденций человеческой цивилизации?
This question I am
Михаил
referring
Семенович,
to about the civilization.
будем
Well, I can make a comment on that.
Ну, комментарий пока я скажу, значит, не знаю, как это будет
So my
воспринято.
first comment is
Первое,
that
первый
those
комментарий
key
связан с тем, что
achievements of a civilization, and at the same time,
достижения
those key
цивилизации,
problems of a civilization are
одновременно
related to
ключевые проблемы
culture
цивилизации связаны
that is
с культурой.
available within a civilization. There's culture, languages, technologies, politics, economy. So this is what we have in this way with the culture notion. This enables us to develop. The analysis shows that these mechanisms, those critical key elements, those mechanisms are actually focused and directed to ruin civilizations, yet at the same time, there are two areas like to change those value systems. This is a dedicated topic on which is unveiled in TRIZ. Maybe it does not work well here, so this value system framework should be focused to stay alive, not lead to disruption or ruining. Biological systems, people and civilizations have no breaking mechanism. Again, lions do not kill lions. Animals of the same kind do not kill each other. And again, this aggression is not there for killing many living organisms if it's not required by nature itself or by any viability. People don't have it. This is related to people's physiology. People are animals in their nutshell, but they are weak animals. We have weak teeth. We don't have claws. We don't have those natural tools to breaking. We are weak animals. Nothing was provided for that by the evolution. And at the same time, people could grasp and learn how to manage big energies and have those social impacts, social influences, where people's physiology, is lagging behind. We have people who impact so many other people. If we take Elon Musk or someone else, owners of social networks, billionaires, so they can impact the fates of billions of people or tens of millions of people, billions of people. So at the same time, these people are just ordinary people. They remain themselves, and very often they cannot think about possible consequences of their actions. So these are those changes that are possible. So this is how we avoid those ways to break. So this civilization mechanisms can be another tool to develop. This is number one, option one to respond to this question. And then after that, our civilization is formulated and has been formed in the recent 5,000 or 6,000 years, while the world around us has been here for billions of years. And again, there can be new civilizations popping up and created. I'm sorry for this very lengthy comment, Anton. Yes, let's move on. Response about DeepSeek. We tried to use other LLMs, but we now are using DeepSeek. I think we have last question. If we tried to use FS with a system operator, identifying those permissible drawbacks and opportunities. In RTV module, we have it, Mikhail, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, we have it. I just want to tell a few moments, take a few moments to tell you about it. So there's functional systems, FS. What does it mean, FS? I can just
Я тоже
move on speaking about those creative thinking development. At Compinno, we have a dedicated module,
у нас в Campino есть отдельный модуль, посвященный
which
инструментам
is
для ревизии точки
based on
зрения.
our
Все построено, на наш взгляд, очень удачно. Мы провели
modules.
уже занятия с использованием этого модуля, то есть там метод золотой
And we have
рыбки,
goldfish methods, morphological
другие методы
approach, and
фантазирования,
other methods. So again,
морфологический анализ там,
it is
и так
possible
далее. Это все
to
очень хорошо.
have it. And we also have a
Потом есть
tool which is called a system operator.
инструмент, который называется системный оператор. Он, если задаешь какую-то систему, то он раскладывает по системным
So
операторам.
this operator is used to work with various systems. In my opinion, this does not work well at the moment.
Работает не очень хорошо,
It helps,
хотя он пытается разделить
it can work with phylogenesis and
системные операторы
tontogenesis,
и
but
онтогены.
it makes mistakes. Maybe further, as we move on, we will conduct further
Мы
experiments
сейчас делаем уже
to test it.
эксперименты.
This system operator is just a demonstration
Системный
of
оператор– это как
those
раз
possible
отражение
forecasting. Those forecasting tools are not really integrated there. Soon we will
В ближайшее
implement
время
those
мы введем несколько
predicting
инструментов
tools with
прогнозирования, в том
those
числе
development lines, identifying
развитие
contradictions. So the system
acceleration,
operator will be
и тогда
using in
системные
a more
операторы
adequate
будут более
manner,
адекватны.
reflecting those
Продолжая уже внутри
tools
себя
there
те
with those
инструменты
tools that we are
прогнозирования,
going
которые
to
мы
integrate
сможем
into
заложить
artificial intelligence.
в искусственный интеллект. Повторюсь,
Again,
обучить прогнозированию искусственный интеллект
teaching artificial
инструменту
forecasting is possible
становится
through
проще,
for
чем
trees
сейчас.
toolkits. When for humans,
Сейчас
system
да,
operator,
значит,
the system operator
системный
function
оператор
is
работает,
working in
работает
such a way. Maybe it's not
но
quite
часто
successful, but it's better than an
ошибки
unprepared
тоже могут
specialist, and we're going to develop it as we move
случаться.
forward.
В будущем мы это будем делать. Там спрашивают дальше.
We have responded this one. There was a question about DeepSeek. Alexander has responded that we are using DeepSeek. Now that's it. We have covered all the questions for the webinar. Maybe if any of you wants to speak and ask an oral question, if not, we're going to close. We thank you for your participation, for your involvement with the webinar. We thank you for your attention to our webinar. We are expecting you to visit other events, and we are going
других наших мероприятиях, о которых мы будем вам сообщать.